spiritual awakening to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, international best-selling metaphysical author and founder of Inner Realms Publishing. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today we have Gwyneth Flack. She is an award-winning author of Limitless, Transform Your Life with Intuition and Creativity. She is a transformational teacher and coach, passionate about helping people tap into their intuition, align with clear decision-making, heal their lives, and cultivate deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Since 2007, Gwyneth has empowered thousands of professionals through private sessions and courses, offering beginner to advanced intuitive development tools to help people thrive and become more grounded in today's fast-paced world. With a unique ability to bridge the gap between intuition and everyday life, Gwyneth specializes in guiding others to uncover their innate gifts, reduce self-critical thinking, and foster a life of harmony and purpose. Her work is rooted in authenticity, laughter, and a deep understanding of the human experience. Gwyneth's love for spiritual exploration, creativity, and heartfelt connection inspires her mission to help others embrace their limitless potential. Welcome, Gwyneth.
Thank you. It's great to be on your beautiful podcast.
Thank you. So the first question I'm going to ask you today is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
I love that question. And to me, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So, how do we embody our spiritual knowledge in the world in which we live? How do we live it and express it and share it? I think that's really, in so many ways, what being enlightened is about, and how consciously aware can we be walking around in the world and then continue to practice being what I would call a soul body team. So a lot of times we might get the impression that we need to go out to find enlightenment, but it's really, how do we become more of a team as the soul presence we are, or with our bodies in this world that we live in? The more we become a team, that really to me means that there's communication happening between the soul and the body. And that's actually what I love to do as a teacher, is help people to get that more communication happening on that soul body level. So it's not a separate thing where, oh, we have the body and we have the spiritual knowledge and we have to go here for this one thing and there for this other thing. It's really, how do we live and bring the two together in a really embodied and conscious way?
The integration of the two, I feel, is so important because when they are disparate, we develop dis-ease. When our body is separated from our soul and we stop paying attention to the communication between the two, it will tell us, it will make us pay attention. And that's what so many people discover as a result of that disconnect. But when we can start to reconnect those, the mind, body, and the spirit, then we really start transforming your life.
I completely agree. And when we have that experience of bringing that soul body communication together in an embodied way, we can have those moments where we actually do experience being limitless, or we experience our limitlessness. And sometimes the way we experience that is through feeling joy, or through some kind of deep meditative experience, but we know it when we experience it. And it, that experience of limitlessness, of having that connection, that soul body connection or teamwork or harmony, really there's no words for it exactly, but it definitely brings us deep joy and peace. And also it lets us get in touch more deeply with our intuition.
So I want to give you a chance to walk the listeners through the path that led you to this discovery. If it was obviously a series of things, but was there one moment that stood out amongst the others that really awakened you to this?
That is a really great question. There's several different really important milestones, I would say, or important junctures where I realized that I had something to offer as a teacher or that I had knowledge that I really wanted to share. But so when I was 4 years old, I had a near-death experience. And so that was really, it was an amazing experience that I remember really clearly. I had been stung by a bee and I had anaphylaxia, and so my breathing started to shut down very rapidly. And my mom quickly threw me in the car with my sister beside me, and we rushed to the hospital. And I got to the hospital. I had that what you might call classic out of body experience where I was up in the corner of the room and I was looking down and I was just in pure awareness. And I was looking down, going, oh, wow, I bring life to my body. I bring life to my body. And I realized that I could stay or go, and that I was okay. What I identified in my awareness is like, even though my body wasn't okay, my body was having trouble breathing and I was turning blue. And so my body wasn't okay, but I realized I'm okay. And so I had this experience of neutral awareness, just being in pure awareness that everything was actually okay. And even though if you would ask my mom, of course, she would say, no, everything's not okay. But for me, everything was okay. And I realized that it was very validating experience to me because I realized that I wasn't just the body. And so I came back to my body and everybody was really happy. But prior to getting stung by the bee and having the anaphylactic shock and that whole experience, I had actually been walking around in the world going, wait, is the cosmic joke on me? Is this all there is? Because I realized people had been just seeing me as the body, as a 4 year old body. And that had made me feel very unseen, right? And we live in a world where so many people do feel unseen. And so I was walking around and people were just treating me as a 4 year old body. And so really that near-death experience helped me to see very clearly and to not forget, because really what happens is so many of us forget and then we remember when we get back onto our spiritual path later on, we remember. But at that juncture, there was no way I was going to forget that I really was more than the body. And to me, that was a celebration. It was really it was really wonderful because I realized that, wow, I could share with people that they are more than just the body, that they have more awareness and more knowledge and more light, whatever you want to call it, way more wisdom than whatever their age is or whatever their education is or whatever their background is. We walk around in the world so often not seeing each other beyond the body. And so that was really the first step, or that really laid down a very strong foundation. And then when I was in my 20s, then I started to get into the spiritual work, and I did a lot of classes and many years of training, and had other amazing experiences at that point that helped. But I never planned on teaching. Actually, when I got into the spiritual work, it was just for my own personal growth, my own spiritual growth, because I just really enjoyed it so much. And then people started to ask if I would teach them. And so I said, oh, okay, maybe I'll just teach one class. And so then I taught one class. And then another group of people said, oh, will you come teach us? And so that's how I never really thought of myself as a teacher, but that was what I was ended up being called to do.
That is probably the youngest near-death experience that we've had on the show as of yet. So that is a very early awakening to all of that profound insight. And to be able to even remember that young and to carry it through is, like you said, a gift. And it must have just changed the total way you looked at your place in this earth versus people who've never had that kind of experience.
Yes, definitely.
In terms of, I want to talk a little bit about grounding, the concept of grounding.
Yeah.
I've noticed that's part of your teachings, and I don't think I've focused on it specifically in the episodes. And it's something at the beginning that I really struggled with because I thought, if I just realized that I'm up here in the corner, why would I want to ground myself to here? And so I think that's probably something that people are wondering, what is the purpose of grounding? Why do we do it? What benefit does it have? And I understand, of course, from a nervous system regulation, that's very important. But it is also a key piece of that integration that you talked about at the beginning.
Yes, it really is. Being grounded allows us to connect to our senses, certainly. And I mean, our body does, just like you said, in terms of nervous system reset or nervous system communication, even. Our body does love to be grounded. And but really, if we're grounded in our space, we have these beautiful vessels, right? Our bodies that we can express our divine self through, if you will. And so we are literally of the earth and cosmos, if you think of it that way. And so we're really meant to be present in our bodies, and present is probably a good word to use because when you're grounded, fully grounded in your body, you're able to be it's much easier to be in present time. We all talk about present time a lot, or being present, and it's very easy for us to end up out of our bodies. Like, for example, if we've been driving a car for 15 minutes and we suddenly realize, oh, yes, I know this route so well, but I don't remember the last 15 minutes. Everybody's had that experience, or being at a meeting where we space out and we just miss something that was important and we have to ask somebody else. And so it's the same thing when we're looking for answers, when we're intuitively looking for answers to those big questions that we have. What's my next career step? And what's the next step for healing my body? Or should I move to a whole different state? Or what's the best next step for my child? Whatever it might be. How do I get from point A to point B in the most aligned way? All those questions, we tend to go out of our bodies on feelings and thoughts. We'll have a thought about this and a feeling about that, and a memory that takes us into past time. We go out on a memory. They're really images in our minds, right? They're mental image pictures in our minds. We tend to just go out, but really the answers are so much easier to access when we just let ourselves settle into our bodies. And then, boom, we're in present time and we're less likely to go out on all those images in our minds, the past experience that's linked to, let's say, even one word, like the word school. We have 1,000 different images in our minds, good experiences, bad experiences. And if we said that, let's say we're just trying to make a decision on behalf of our child at school, and we think about that, and and we know it's something intuitive.
If you are enjoying my podcast and are intrigued by dreams and stories of spiritual awakening, I would like to personally invite you to explore my international best-selling metaphysical trilogy, Witches of Maple Hollow. Like a mystical fairy tale, these fall-themed mysteries weave cozy supernatural fantasy into enchanting tales of magic and self-discovery. Start with Book 1, The Dream Haunters. The Book Life Prize calls it packed to the brim with surprise portals, ancient traditions, and dream worlds. Then dive into the elusive nature of reality in the dream mirrors. And finally, unravel ancestral riddles beyond time and space in the dream dimensions. Get your exclusive signed copies today at meganmary.com. Stop by the store while you're there and grab your dream journals, cozy blankets, pillows, candles, and more. And don't forget, they also are available in audiobook. Come visit me in Maple Hollow.
We know we need to access our intuition for an answer. If we just go out on those pictures, it's hard to find the answer. But if we ground ourselves, then we're less affected. We're basically less affected by what's in the outside of Shakespeare's theater, if you will. If the world is
Love that. A
Shakespeare's
stage.
theater, we want to look out at Shakespeare's theater. We want to sit in maybe a beautiful, comfortable chair and watch the world and observe the world and know that, oh, I'm watching a tragedy, and oh, I'm watching a comedy, I'm watching a history, right? In Shakespeare, there's the tragedies and the comedies and the histories,
Yep.
just like in any movie that we see or any book or whatever. Being grounded allows us to observe Shakespeare's theater, if you will, and have a little bit of space to just be embodied and to not react, but rather to have a pause to respond. And that's also where our intuition shows up. When we move into a space of observing, that then allows us to respond rather than react. And we become then more neutral. A neutral means we're not just boom, reacting to everything or going out with every like worry or thought or experience. We're just allowing ourselves to be. And we give ourselves space to be in that grounded space of the observer. Then we start to be able to more easily and efficiently, I would say, ask for, first of all, maybe formulate what our questions are, because finding what our questions are is always a great space to be in to then have our answers show up, because really it's about accessing our own answers. And we have those answers within ourselves. And those answers are different for each one of us. And that's why it's such a beautiful, fulfilling kind of thing to access your higher self or your intuition or whatever you call it, your inner guidance. People have all different words for the same thing. But yeah, so it can be then much easier to ask and to receive, because really being intuitive is a receptive space. And so in Shakespeare's theater, if you will, where you're observing and you're grounded and you're in your body, then it's a more receptive space than our going out and doing space. We are trained from day one, as soon as we start kindergarten, whatever, get this done. Here's your to-do list, do, achieve, and get the grades and check all the boxes and don't stop until it's all done, which means you never can really stop, right? But yeah, so we're not taught to receive. We're actually not taught to create that beautiful, receptive, intuitive space in which our intuition or guidance can just so easily show up in that pause that we've created for ourselves. And all that can really happen really quickly. So, because when we practice it and just decide, yeah, I would like to bring grounding into my life and as a regular practice, it can all happen in the space of a few seconds, really, as we start to just consciously make that decision that we would like to have that experience, bring it into our lives and practice it.
I love the Shakespeare analogy. I just remembered that you have an English background, and I have the master's in English as well. And Shakespeare is one of my favorites because I specialize in British literature. So, that being
Oh,
said,
fabulous.
I really like the analogy, and I also like that it underscored that we do have all the answers. It's just a matter of shutting off the chaos to be able to hear them. And part of it is that emotional spiral that we end up in when something happens and we have to make a decision and we start getting on that hamster wheel of, well, if I do this and if I do this, and projection and fear and all these things about making the wrong decision and all of that. And we get too up here in that spiral and we can't make grounded decisions or hear the answers to what we should do because we're freaking out over the situation. I know I find myself that way too because, like you said, the achieve and the productive and the do, that's very much me. And sometimes I overwhelm myself with all the things that I need to do and I can't make a decision to move forward. And it's because I'm too afraid. And then when I accept the fact that, okay, this is actually temporary, this is happening for a reason, I can lean into this, let this happen, one thing at a time, figure it out. Then that grounded, all of a sudden, you start to get led in the right direction as opposed to just spinning around in a analysis paralysis, I call it.
Yeah, that's such a great description. And the more the sort of analyzing part of ourselves gets wound up and the overthinking part of ourselves gets all wound up, we even have a word for it. We say, oh, I'm just really in my head right now. We recognize that we get in our heads and it is an ungrounded space. And then as soon as we create the space to be grounded, it brings us that safety even. It even creates safety for us to trust ourselves. But yes, and because when we're young, we're taught right away to be critical thinkers. And critical thinking, of course, is really great, right? It certainly is important intellectual training, but what happens is that critical mind gets given too much seniority, if you will, within us. And so that critical mind ends up with self-critical thoughts. It turns on us because it's the part of ourselves that breaks everything into little parts, right? Critical thinking is in a lot of ways breaking it into little parts and separating it out and analyzing it. And then there's our spiritual self that's really wants is experiential and wants to be in a state of oneness. And so so really it's a matter of turning down the analyzing part of ourselves when we don't need it to be on full. And and then that does make it easier to get back in our bodies and ground because you're right. It's a very wound up world. So we're very sensitive. Anybody who is a spiritual person is probably going to be very empathic and sensitive. And the other thing that happens is we tend to match the chaos of the world, and that gets our overthinking, sometimes overly critical mind, over analyzing mind more wound up. Is we literally match the energy that we see out there in the world. And so there's also this part of us that needs to unmatch from that so that and the unmatching is really a way of giving ourselves space amidst all of that, because otherwise we just end up absorbing it, and we absorb emotions that aren't even ours. And so that can also make us feel really anxious. It can add to that, those feelings of anxiety and stress. And we absorb these feelings and we absorb emotions and we combine it really with our true feelings because our true feelings are really important and amazing and we want to be able to access those. But we end up with what I'd call mixed emotions where we it's a little bit of this and it's a little bit of that. It's all mixed together in a soup that we didn't necessarily choose all the ingredients for. We didn't it's not
Mm-hmm.
the right mix. And so being able to ground ourselves once again, it allows us to release. I think that's another part to this whole journey of being a spiritual being having this human experience is knowing how to be able to release and let go very quickly. And so when we're out, it's hard. We can't really release anything because where are we releasing it from? But when we're embodied in our bodies, which is a practice, it's not about being perfect or anything like that. It's just a practice. It really allows us to let go and release. So release that to-do list or release that whole stressful encounter that we might just have had in our workplace or with a family member or something like that. And once we start to release, then we just go, oh, that feels much better. It's like setting down a big heavy backpack that we've been carrying around that we didn't even know how heavy it got. That's part of it too. We don't even know how heavy that backpack starts to get. Something else gets loaded on from the world, something else. And we're like, it's okay. I'm strong. I can carry it all. And then we have that opportunity to become grounded and still and calm, and we start to release. We go, oh my gosh, wow, I have more space. I have more space to be. And that's a very creative space when we give ourselves space to be who we are. And when we release some of the cares of the world, some of the weight of the world, and it opens up higher levels of creativity for us, which makes us be more excited about life too, more enthusiastic, I would say, when we then start to engage with our whatever our creativity is. Creativity in the broadest sense of the word, because we're creative beings. So we can apply our creativity absolutely anything, not just art or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good quantifier. And I was thinking of a number of things as you were talking in terms of the unmatching. I haven't heard somebody describe it that way.
Yeah.
And I equate it to that really being the authenticity piece because you're letting go of the things that have almost, let's just say, gotten stuck on you in the metaphorical way
Yeah.
from the outside that aren't yours, but that you are wearing around. And you're not being your true self because eventually you're covered with all the things that are stuck on you from outside. And so the unmatching is almost the shedding of those things. And when you, some people call it hold the light, or when you're in your alignment with your own authenticity, that is that creative space, that is that it's a space of relief even though it can be really scary to get there, that so much part of the spiritual awakening is getting, releasing the ego, releasing the pressures from the outside world, releasing the definitions that you've put upon yourself, whether from other people or from yourself. And then that relief when you don't have to do those things anymore, when you don't feel the weight of those things.
Yeah, and it can be in some ways a little scary at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point because you're releasing some of the old identities that, yes, they never were yours in the first place. They might have been put upon you by all the systems, our family systems and our schooling systems and all of that. Basically, our identities to survive, even if that's not necessarily true, but that's how it translates, is have this identity and have that identity to survive. Here's the rule book. But it's not really a rule book that works for us so often. Maybe, and then less and less. As we get older, we tend to notice more and more, that's not really me. That's not really working for me. But a lot of times people sometimes might feel a little scared about opening that, like it's Pandora's box or something like that. But even though it's not, and it's really can be a very joyful process, especially if you do it slowly and gently for yourself. Not,
Well,
don't
that leads
approach
me,
it like
yeah,
it's, you know what I mean? It's not boot camp. It's
and that leads me to my next question. In parting, what would you say to the audience are some practical ways that they can start to do everything that we've been talking about?
I certainly would recommend buying my book because that has 20 different activities and exercises in it. Limitless, transform your life with intuition and creativity. And then you can digest it in small pieces. I would certainly also say go out in nature and just sit on a rock, put your hand on a tree, and really just put away the phone for a little while and even sometimes the music and just let yourself be in the natural soundtrack of nature. Just allow yourself to be present and then also just intentionally start to align yourself or with your intention, just deciding I'm ready to grow in ways that are really healthy for me. And I want to be guided in really healthy, safe, spiritual ways that will help me to take my next steps and just start to focus how you would like to take your next steps and that you want to connect more with yourself as a spiritual being and start to greet that and welcome that with enthusiasm because that always helps. Don't take yourself seriously and just bring in give yourself a lot of self-love. Yeah.
Yes, and I will put your book in the show notes as well as on the Women's Dream Enlightenment podcast book lists that are at Amazon and bookshop.org. But let everyone know where they can find you as well if they'd like to look more into what you have to offer.
Yeah, one great way to find me is through my website, gwynethflack.com, GWYNETHFLACK. You can, yeah, finding me, send me an email through my website. That's really a great way. I'm on the socials too, so you can find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Great.
And yeah, I'd love to hear from you if you enjoyed hearing me on this beautiful podcast.
Yes, let us know in the comments if this resonated with you. We always like to hear from our listeners. Thank you for being here today, Gwyneth, and sharing your experience and the work that you're doing out in the world.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? Be sure to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button as well to be part of my growing community. Are you ready to take the next step in your spiritual journey? Don't miss out on the new Dream Empowerment programs. Unique opportunities for you to unlock your inner wisdom, discover your authenticity, align with your higher self, and bring abundance into your life. If you'd like your dream or awakening story featured on my show, submit it today. Your dreams have the power to inspire and enlighten other women on their journey. Visit meganmary.com to find out more.